My name's Ryan, and for the past decade I was married to my wife, Jessica. We built a life together, two beautiful kids, Ava who just turned 8 and Mason, our energetic little boy who's 5. To anyone on the outside we looked like the picture-perfect family. But the unraveling started with something small. A scent. Not perfume, cologne. That night, like so many lately, Jessica came home later than usual. She brushed past me with a rushed kiss, and that's when I caught the scent, faint but unfamiliar. It wasn't mine. And it wasn't hers either. She tossed out some excuse about a meeting that ran over and disappeared upstairs without another word. I stood there, staring after her, this strange feeling twisting in my chest. The days that followed felt like I was moving underwater. Everything around me slowed, the sounds muffled, like I was suddenly aware that something was off in a way I hadn't noticed before. Her phone was practically glued to her hand. I caught her smiling at texts I wasn't part of. And every time I asked who it was, she gave me those same tired responses, just work stuff, or you're imagining things. But deep down, I knew I wasn't imagining anything. Then came that Saturday. She told me she was heading out for a girls' day. The second the door shut behind her, I felt it, this pressure in my chest that wouldn't let go. I needed to know the truth. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I pulled up our phone records. And there it was. A number I didn't recognize filling the screen. Endless texts. Calls in the middle of the night, 11 p.m., 1 in the morning, sometimes later. My hands went numb holding the phone. My wife hadn't been spending time with friends. She was with someone else. Someone I didn't even know. And suddenly, I didn't know who I was anymore either. That night, I didn't come at her with rage. I didn't shout. I just waited. I watched. She walked in late, all smiles, looking way too calm for someone who'd supposedly been out shopping all day. How was it? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. It was good, she said casually, tossing her purse on the couch like it was any normal day. Just needed to hang out with the girls for a bit. I nodded, biting my lip, but inside every part of me screamed, liar. The next day I took another step. I called the number. No one answered. I didn't leave a message. I just stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands trembling. That was when it hit me. This wasn't some passing thing. It was deliberate. Carefully hidden. So I started watching more closely. I know how it sounds, but I had to know. I had to be sure. She wasn't where she claimed to be, not at work dinners, not with friends. She was across town. Places that made no sense. One night, I saw her car parked outside a house I'd never seen before. It just sat there. 4 hours. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready to hear the lies I already knew were coming. But it was eating me alive. Then came the final straw. Another so-called business dinner. Her third that week. I watched her walk out the door with a smile like nothing was wrong, and I knew I couldn't sit back anymore. I followed her. From a distance, heart racing, I stayed on her trail as she drove through the city. She didn't stop at a restaurant. Or an office. She pulled up to that same house. Like it was a routine. I parked down the block, hands shaking, barely able to breathe. I watched her go inside without hesitation. And I sat there. Watching. Minutes turned into hours. My thoughts spiraled. It was real. This was happening. And I was powerless to stop it. Eventually she came out. Her face was flushed and something in her expression looked different. I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But I didn't move. I was frozen in that car, consumed by a heartbreak I didn't know how to carry. She drove home like nothing had changed. But something had. I wasn't the same man who left our house that evening. I had seen the truth and it broke something in me I didn't know could break. Back home, she picked up right where she left off. Same routine. No eye contact. Straight to the shower, like she hadn't just ripped my world apart. And that was the moment I snapped. I followed her into the bathroom, my voice quiet but cutting. Who is he, Jessica? She froze mid-motion, hand still on the faucet. Her eyes widened, caught. Exposed. I'd never seen her look so scared. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then she opened her mouth. What are you talking about? Her voice shook, but she was still trying to act like nothing was wrong. Too late for that. I followed you today, I said. To that house. I know everything. Her expression drained of all color, and for a long moment she didn't say a word. Her lips parted slightly like she meant to speak, but nothing came out. The mask she'd been wearing for who knows how long, months, maybe even years, finally slipped. And in that moment, I saw something raw in her eyes. The truth. And it tore me apart. Jessica stood completely still, looking like someone who just had the air sucked out of their lungs. For a brief second I actually expected her to try and deny it. But she didn't. Her mouth opened once, then closed again. Nothing but silence. And that silence said everything. It was the sound of something breaking. Us. I don't know what to say, Ryan, she whispered, her voice so thin it almost vanished in the air between us. I couldn't help myself. The pain, the confusion, it just spilled out. Just be honest with me. No more games. Who is he? She turned away from me, bracing herself against the sink like it was the only thing holding her up. It's not what you think, she said, barely above a whisper. It's complicated. That word, complicated, hit me like a slap. My chest tightened. My jaw clenched. I felt like ripping everything in that bathroom apart, breaking it down just like she'd broken us. But I kept it together. Just barely. Complicated? I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. You've been lying to me for months. You've been vanishing, spinning stories, and sneaking off to be with him. That's not complicated, Jessica. That's betrayal. So cut the vague excuses and tell me, who is he? She turned around slowly. Her eyes were red now, glossed over, tears clinging to the edges. His name's Brandon, she said softly, the words almost too quiet to hear. Brandon. A name I didn't recognize. A stranger who had somehow slipped into my life through the back door, ripping through everything I thought was safe. My stomach twisted. How long? I asked. Part of me didn't even want the answer, but I needed to hear it from her. Her lip trembled as she answered. About 6 months. 6 months. That meant half a year of lies. Of stolen moments. Of me tucking our kids into bed, thinking I was building a life, while she was out giving pieces of herself to someone else. It was like a dagger turning in my chest. 6 months, I repeated, my voice thick, heavy. So what, you were just going to keep hiding it? Just keep smiling, keep sneaking off and lying to my face until I finally caught you? Tears finally started falling from her eyes, but I felt nothing. No pity. No softness. I didn't mean for this to happen, she cried. I don't even know how it started. We met at a work event and it just happened. I shook my head, the pain in my chest growing sharper with each word. It didn't just happen, Jessica. Affairs don't just happen. Every time you lied. Every time you walked out that door knowing what you were doing, you made a choice. I know, she whispered. Her voice was breaking now. I know, Ryan. I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to hurt you. But she did. Whether she meant to or not, the damage had already been done. I looked at her then, really looked at her. This woman I had shared 10 years and 2 kids with. The woman I had trusted with everything. And now, standing in front of me, she looked like someone else. Like a stranger wearing Jessica's face. Is it over? I asked, my voice low. Are you still seeing him? She hesitated. And that hesitation said more than any confession ever could. We ended it, she said finally, eyes falling to the floor. But even as she said it, I could feel it in my bones. She wasn't telling me the whole truth. When? I asked, my throat tightening. A few weeks ago, she replied, her voice faint. And that was it. That was the final crack in whatever was left between us. Not only had she been unfaithful, but even when it was supposedly over, she didn't come clean. She didn't try to fix it. She kept pretending. Kept lying. I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. I turned and walked out, my footsteps sounding too loud in the quiet of our home. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I needed to get out. I needed space. I needed to get away from the woman who had burned our life to the ground. Just as I reached the front door, her voice called out behind me. Ryan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't want this. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. I paused, my hand resting on the doorframe. Her words hung there, heavy and hollow. But they didn't fix anything. They didn't undo the betrayal, or erase the nights I sat up alone wondering why she felt so far away. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I don't know if there's anything left to save, I said quietly. And then I walked out, leaving her to face the wreckage she had created. I don't know how long I drove. Just aimlessly, the streets blurring past, my thoughts spinning. I felt lost, furious and heartbroken all at once. Then my phone buzzed. I thought it would be Jessica. More apologies. More desperation. But it wasn't. It was Brandon. A text. We need to talk. Meet me at the bar on Monroe Street. No. There's something you don't know. I stared at the message, the screen glowing in the dark car. My hands were shaking again. Her affair had already broken me. But now the guy she cheated with wanted to meet? What else could there be? Was this some twisted joke? A cruel follow-up to the betrayal? But something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe pure anger, drove me to respond. Fine. The place on Monroe Street, I knew it well. A quiet dive bar tucked away behind a row of shuttered shops. The lighting inside was dim, shadows clinging to every corner, like it was designed for people who wanted to vanish for a while. As I stepped through the door, the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on me like 1,000 pounds. But I was ready, at least I thought I was. I spotted him right away. He was tucked into a corner booth, one hand wrapped around a half-empty glass, the other fiddling with his phone. He looked uneasy. Younger than I expected, mid to late 20s maybe. Not the smug, cocky type I'd imagined all this time. He seemed nervous, anxious. I walked straight toward him, my jaw tight, fists clenched, ready to say everything I'd been rehearsing in my head. But when our eyes met, something about the way he looked at me made me pause. There was no challenge in his expression. No arrogance. Just regret. Sit down, he said softly. There's something I need to tell you. I didn't sit. I stayed right there, standing tall, fists at my sides. You've got 5 seconds to tell me why I'm here before I turn around and leave. He let out a shaky breath, dragging his hands down his face like he hadn't slept in days. Look, I know you're angry. You have every reason to be. But this isn't just about me and Jessica. There's more going on here. Something you don't know. Something you need to see. I narrowed my eyes. What are you talking about? I snapped. Stop stalling and just tell me what it is. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice to a whisper. Your wife, Jessica, she's not just seeing me. She's been working here. My stomach dropped. What? She's been working at this bar. For months, he said, his voice trembling now. In the back rooms. Private ones. With other guys. I blinked, stunned. You're out of your mind. I didn't know, he said quickly, shaking his head. At first I thought it was just me and her. I swear I didn't know what else she was doing. But a few weeks ago I found out the truth. She's not just cheating. She's been with other men. For money. Everything in the room blurred. My knees went weak, but I forced myself to stand my ground. You're lying. She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't. His eyes locked onto mine. They were filled with guilt, but also something else, sincerity. I didn't want to believe it either, he said. But I saw it with my own eyes. She takes men to those rooms in the back. They go in. They don't come out for a while. This place, she's been using it. And she didn't just lie to you. She lied to me too. Every word he spoke felt like a punch straight to the gut. I wanted to lash out, to throw the table, to silence him. But deep down, something in his voice felt real. Honest. Painful. Why should I believe anything you say? I asked, my voice low, almost a growl. Come with me, he said, standing up slowly, hands shaking. She's working tonight. You can see for yourself. My chest felt like it was being crushed. My mind screamed for me to leave, to not go down that hallway, to not see what couldn't be unseen. But I had to know. I had to. I nodded once. He led the way past the jukebox, past the bar where laughter and glasses clinked like nothing was wrong, deeper into the building. We slipped into a narrow hallway tucked away behind the bathrooms, one I hadn't even noticed before. At the end, several doors. Unmarked. Closed. He stopped in front of one, his hand hovering over the doorknob. She's in here, he said quietly. I couldn't breathe. My entire body tensed, every nerve on fire. I wasn't ready for this. But it was too late to turn back now. With a trembling hand, I reached for the doorknob and pushed it open. And there she was. Jessica. Sitting on a worn-out couch under dim yellow light, wearing clothes I'd never seen her wear before. Her eyes went wide the second she saw me. Guilt. Fear. She didn't move. Across from her sat an older man, casually leaning back like he was waiting for something, or someone. He stood quickly, muttering something about walking into the wrong room as he brushed past me. I barely noticed him. My focus was on her. Only her. What is this? I whispered, my voice cracking. What are you doing? She didn't speak. Didn't move. She just looked at me, caught in the act, no more lies left to tell. This wasn't just an affair. This was betrayal at a depth I didn't even know existed. My wife, the woman I built a life with, was here in this room, and she wasn't here by accident. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Her voice was so faint it barely reached me. I can explain. But there was nothing she could say to make this make sense. Nothing she could tell me that would undo what I was seeing. What I now knew. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I could barely breathe. She stood slowly, tears already streaking her face, mouth trembling as if she was still searching for the right lie to tell. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ryan, please. I can explain. Explain what, Jessica? My voice came out low and sharp, each word heavy with a fury I could barely keep down. Explain how you've been lying to me for months? How you've been sneaking off here to this place? Selling yourself behind closed doors while I've been sitting at home like a fool, thinking I knew who you were? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mouth opened slightly but no sound came out, only more tears. The weight of her actions finally seemed to hit her, and it was too late to pull herself out of it. I never meant for it to get this far, she mumbled, shaking her head, eyes darting to the floor. It started small and I didn't know how to tell you. Then it just kept going. But I swear, Ryan, I love you. I do. That hit hard. Not because I believed her, but because she had the nerve to still say it, as if love could wipe away everything. As if those words could make this okay. Love. I repeated, nearly choking on it. If you loved me, Jessica, you never would have done this. The tears kept coming, streaking down her face, and for just a second, something in me flickered. Some distant trace of pity, maybe. But I shoved it down. She made these choices. She dug this hole. And I wasn't going to climb in it with her. You need to leave, I said, cold and flat, slicing through the silence like a knife. She blinked, confused. What? When we get home, you're packing a bag and getting out. You're not staying there, not under the same roof as me and the kids. Panic flooded her face, then real panic. Ryan, please, no. We can work this out. I'll stop. Everything stops here. I'll do whatever it takes. Please just give me a chance. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. A chance? There's nothing left to fix. You chose this. You threw away our family like it meant nothing. I can't look at you the same, and I won't pretend to. She stepped forward like she was going to reach for me, her hand trembling. We can go to counseling. We can figure this out. No one even has to know. Not your parents, not anyone. We can keep this between us, Ryan. Please. I stepped back, avoiding her touch like it burned. This isn't about what people know, Jessica. This is about you. What you did. What you've been doing. And this ends tonight. I pointed toward the door. You're leaving. I don't care where you go, but don't be there when I come home. She stood there stunned. Like she still didn't believe I meant it. Like she thought maybe, somehow, I'd come around. That I'd cave. Her voice cracked, weak and desperate. I don't have anywhere to go. Go to your friends? I snapped. Isn't that where you always disappear to when things get hard? I knew she ran off to her friend Dana's whenever we fought. It had become her hiding spot. Well, now it could be permanent. Her shoulders dropped, her whole body sagging under the weight of what she couldn't talk her way out of. She'd always been able to twist things, spin herself into the role of the victim. But not this time. Not anymore. She wiped her face, her breath hitching between sobs. Okay, I'll go. But Ryan, I will fix this. I swear. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger. Don't waste your time. And with that, I turned and walked out of that room, leaving her behind. My feet felt like concrete as I crossed the bar and stepped outside. The cool night air hit my face, sharp and clean, like I was finally able to breathe again after suffocating for hours. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't stop the thoughts from circling. How did we get here? How did the woman I loved, who I trusted with everything, become someone I couldn't even look at? But the why didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that it was done. When I got home, the house was dark. Silent. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I just sat there in the living room, staring at the wall, waiting for the sound of her walking in and gathering her things. I pictured her knocking on Dana's door, trying to figure out her next lie. I pictured her sitting in the dark, trying to rewrite this whole thing in her head, wondering how she could make herself look like the one who was wronged. The silence in the house was deafening. It wrapped around me like a noose, tightening with every memory. Every late night. Every fake smile. Every time she told me she was tired after work, when I now knew she wasn't even there. My hands were shaking. My chest was burning with a fury I didn't know how to get out of me. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Even just a fraction of it. I wanted her to hurt. And then, something twisted sparked in me. Her father, Nolan, had always been a regular in places like that bar. Always liked seedy spots with private rooms. That thought, it stuck. Festered. Grew. He had indulged in that same world. And now so had his daughter. And that was when the idea formed. Dark. Unforgivable. The kind of thought that only crosses your mind when you finally hit the end of who you used to be. I realized I could use the one thing she still clung to, her family, as the tool to dismantle her world. And the moment that thought formed, I knew exactly how to do it. The plan took shape in my mind almost too easily. I knew where she worked. I knew Nolan's patterns, his favorite haunts, the kind of nights he liked to disappear into. And I knew how to steer all of it toward one single point of impact, where the lies couldn't be spun and the masks couldn't be worn. I picked up the phone and called him. His voice was cheerful, laid back, like a man without a care in the world. He greeted me like a son. I told him I had something lined up for him, something special, something he'd enjoy. A night out, just the two of us. He didn't hesitate. He loved those nights. He had no idea what I was walking him into. When I pulled into the parking lot outside that same rundown bar Jessica had been working in, my chest was tight, but my thoughts were steady. This wasn't about reconciliation anymore. It was about exposure. About letting the whole thing burn. Nolan was already inside when I stepped in, sitting at a table with a beer in hand and a wide grin on his face. He waved me over like we were old friends. "Ryan, my man. You said you had a surprise for me. What is it? Come on, don't hold out." I smiled just enough to get by. "We'll get to that. First, a drink." We shared a couple rounds, small talk blurring in the background. He laughed. I nodded. My heart pounded in rhythm with every ticking second. Finally, I stood up and excused myself. At the bar, I caught the eye of the manager. He knew who I was. He had seen me in there enough times while I was trailing Jessica. I leaned in, my voice level. "I need one of the back rooms," I said. "It's for the guy I'm with." The manager gave me a curious look, but didn't ask questions. He simply nodded and muttered, "Give us 15. Someone will take him back." I nodded, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. This was it. The point of no return. Back at the table, Nolan looked buzzed, relaxed. "So, what's the surprise, huh? You've got me curious." I gave him a cold smile. "You're going to love it. Private room. Real exclusive." His eyes lit up like a kid about to unwrap a birthday present. "Now you're talking." 15 minutes later, just as promised, a suited man approached and gave us a nod. "Room's ready." Nolan stood up, practically beaming. I followed behind, silent, as we made our way through the low-lit hallway I had memorized. Every step echoed louder in my ears. When we reached the room, the man opened the door and gestured for Nolan to step in. "Someone will join you shortly." He turned and flashed me a grin before walking inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. And I stayed right there, still, silent, listening. At first it was quiet. Then came the subtle creak of another door inside opening. And then the gasp. "Dad." Jessica's voice. "Sure." Stunned. Frightened. "What? Jessica?" Nolan's voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing here?" Silence, thick and suffocating, settled between their words. "You work here?" he asked, his voice rising. "You've been doing this? All this time?" "I didn't want you to find out this way," she stammered. I didn't have a choice." "You didn't have a choice?" he snapped, his voice full of disbelief and something else, revulsion. "Don't give me that. My daughter. In this place? My God, does Ryan know?" More silence. I could almost see it, the way she would shrink into herself, unable to answer. No more defenses. No more ways to twist the truth. I stepped back from the door, heart still thundering, but the fog in my head was gone. That was all I needed. Let them sit in the wreckage. Let them deal with what they'd become. Jessica had dragged our marriage through the dirt. Now her father had a front row seat to the consequences. And as twisted as it all was, I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. She'd betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. But now she knew what betrayal felt like. I didn't wait around to see how it ended. I left them both behind in that dim corridor, in that bar built on secrets and shadows. And for the first time in months, I walked away not as the man who'd been broken, but as the one who finally stopped bleeding. I had barely stepped into the house when the door flew open behind me, slamming shut so hard it rattled the frame. Jessica came storming in, her face twisted in fury, the kind of rage that burns hot when someone finally loses control. She didn't knock. She didn't call. She just barged in like a storm that had been building for months. "How could you?" she shrieked, eyes wild, breath sharp and broken. "You told my dad? You set that whole thing up." Her voice cracked, raw and angry. "What's wrong with you, Ryan?" I stood there, arms folded, letting her rage crash against me like waves on stone. Her cheeks were flushed, her fists clenched at her sides. She looked completely unhinged. All the lies she'd built, all the secrets she'd stashed away, they had finally caught up to her, and she didn't know what to do with the shame. So she turned it into rage. "You humiliated me, she screamed, stepping closer. In front of my father, Ryan? You had no right. What kind of person does that to someone they once loved? She was trying to pull something out of me, guilt, maybe, regret. But all I felt was a strange, quiet satisfaction. She thought she could burn my world to the ground and walk away untouched. Now she knew better. You really think I did this to you? I said, my voice low and steady. You think I'm the one who broke everything? You are, she shouted, tears edging her voice. You set this up. You knew exactly what would happen. You planned it. You wanted to hurt me. I stared at her, jaw tight, and let out a bitter laugh. No, Jessica. You did this. You wrecked our marriage. You lied. You cheated. You snuck off like our family was just something you could walk away from. This mess? It's yours. She looked like she wanted to argue, to scream more, but I held up my hand before she could say another word. You haven't once apologized for what you did to me. Not once. All you've talked about is how you feel. Your embarrassment. Your shame. You haven't said a single word about the pain you caused me. Or our kids. She looked away, her fury faltering just enough to expose the crack underneath. But then, like a switch flipping, she came back swinging. I'm taking the kids, she said through clenched teeth. I'm leaving tonight. You won't see them again. The words hit me hard, but I didn't show it. I had already seen this coming. No, Jessica, I said, voice calm and ice cold. You're not taking anyone. Her face twisted, confused. What are you talking about? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. Walked over and placed it on the table between us. Open it. She snatched it, tore it open, her hands trembling. Her eyes scanned the paper, and I watched it happen. The shift. The shock. The moment her entire world crumbled. These are divorce papers, she whispered. I nodded. And custody papers. I'm filing for full parental rights. You'll have no access. No say. No contact. She stared at me, stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. You can't do that, she muttered. You can't take them away from me. I'm not taking them, I said, stepping closer, my voice firm. You gave them away. Every time you walked into one of those rooms. Every time you lied to my face. The court will see it. And they'll protect them from you. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't feel a thing. Not pity. Not grief. Not even anger. Just finality. The woman who stood in front of me wasn't the person I married. She wasn't the mother I trusted. She was someone else entirely. A stranger. Please, Ryan, she said, her voice cracking. They're my kids. Don't do this. You already did it, I replied, my tone unshakable. This is just the consequence. Her hands were trembling as she clutched the papers, her entire body shaking. She looked around like she was searching for something to hold on to, some reality where this wasn't happening. But it was happening. You need to leave, I said, voice steady and final. Go stay with Dana like you always do. Pack your things and be gone by morning. You're not going to threaten me with the kids ever again. She sank into a chair, the envelope still in her hands, her eyes locked on the papers as if they were written in fire. And in a way they were. They were the end. The closing chapter of everything she thought she controlled. And I didn't say another word. Because there was nothing left to say. There was nothing left for her to twist, no more control to hold over me. Whatever power she thought she had, it was gone. I had taken it back. The morning of the divorce hearing felt different. The air was lighter, like the weight I'd been carrying for months had finally started to lift. I stood outside the courthouse, the sun warming my face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. It wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the closing of a chapter I'd fought so hard to survive. Jessica didn't show. I can't say I was surprised. She'd been absent more often than not lately. Ever since that night at the bar with her father, she'd unraveled completely. People started talking. The truth spread faster than I expected, about what she'd been doing, where she'd been. And slowly, the sympathy she once relied on faded away. She tried to play the victim, but no one was buying it anymore. Inside the courtroom, I sat through the legal motions like I was watching someone else's life unfold. My attorney laid everything out, every lie, every text, every shadowy night she had spent in those rooms. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. The judge didn't hesitate. Full custody was awarded to me. Her parental rights? Stripped away without protest. She didn't contest it. Maybe deep down she knew she didn't have a leg to stand on. When the gavel fell, it was like someone opened a window in my chest. I could finally breathe again. I wasn't just free of her, I was free to rebuild a life that had been held together with lies for far too long. The legal stuff wrapped up fast. I packed up what was left of her belongings, left the boxes out by the curb, and that was the last time I looked back. Ella and Mason had questions. They're kids, but they're sharp. They knew something was off long before I could find the words to explain. I sat them down after dinner one night, the air thick, my heart in my throat. Mom's going to stay with a friend for a while, I told them, choosing my words carefully. But you're with me now. That's not going to change. Ella looked at me for a long time, her eyes searching mine like she already knew more than she should. Will we see her again? I swallowed hard, forcing a gentle smile. Maybe one day. But not for a while. Mason didn't say much, he was more focused on his Legos. But he climbed into my lap later and rested his head on my chest. He didn't have to say anything. That moment said it all. And just like that, we began the process of healing. The house changed after she left. Felt open, lighter. The silence no longer hurt, it was peaceful. The tension that used to hum beneath every interaction was gone. I started working from home more, making sure I was there in the mornings and when school let out. We spent weekends at the park watching movies, baking cookies that never turned out right but always made us laugh. I became the kind of father I always wanted to be. The kind of man I should have been before everything went wrong. And as for Jessica? The fall came fast. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she lost her job. The scandal at the bar had made its way to the higher-ups, and that door slammed shut. Without a paycheck, she leaned on Dana for support, but even that didn't last. From what I was told, Dana eventually cut ties, tired of cleaning up a mess she didn't make. Jessica reached out a few times. Text messages at odd hours. Voicemails that sounded like they came from a person who didn't know how to say anything other than, "I'm sorry," and "I miss you." But I didn't respond. I couldn't. I owed it to myself, and to my kids, to leave that chapter closed. One night my phone rang. It was Dana. Her voice was low, uncomfortable. "Ryan, I just thought you should know. Jessica's not doing well. She's really struggling." I didn't say anything. I ended the call without another word. Whatever Jessica was going through, it wasn't my burden anymore. Eventually, I found out she was living alone on the edge of town, barely scraping by. A small, crumbling apartment. No steady work. No support system. Her perfect illusion had shattered, and all that remained was the reality she created with her own choices. Meanwhile, I had everything I truly needed. Every morning I woke up to the sound of Ella and Mason giggling in the other room. It reminded me that we made it through. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Really living. I made their lunches. I helped with homework. I told them stories at night until they fell asleep smiling. Our little home was quiet, but it was full of love. And that was more than enough. One night, as we sat around the dinner table, Ella looked up from her plate and asked softly, "Daddy, are you happy now?" I looked at her, then at Mason, who had macaroni stuck to his cheek. And I smiled, one that came from deep inside, one that had been buried for far too long. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "I'm happy. And we're going to be just fine."